My lazy coworkers made me snap. Time to call it quits. My cubicle was strategically positioned near the supply closet, offering a clear view of the office entrance. This wasn't some grand design on my part, but rather the only space available when I joined Miller Zoys, a mid-sized accounting firm nestled in the heart of downtown. Initially, I didn't mind. I'm Sarah, and I take pride in my work, a trait that seems increasingly rare these days, especially amongst my immediate colleagues. Brenda, for instance, operated on a schedule dictated by the celestial alignment of coffee breaks and social media notifications. She'd saunter in anywhere between 9:15 and 9:45, her excuses ranging from unforeseen traffic at 6 a.m. to a dramatic retelling of her cat's digestive woes. Then there was Kevin. Kevin wasn't inherently lazy, he possessed a certain level of competence, but he wielded it like a loaded weapon aimed squarely at my workload. He'd feign confusion over the simplest tasks, conveniently redirecting them my way with a disarming, "Sarah, you're just so much better at this stuff. Could you give me a hand?" In the beginning, I was happy to help. I genuinely enjoy problem solving and I believed in teamwork, but the helping quickly morphed into outright task dumping. Brenda would routinely leave her work unfinished, claiming she was too swamped, which translated to spending an hour online shopping during work hours. Kevin would strategically time his urgent requests for the last hour of the day, knowing I'd be too conscientious to leave them hanging. My direct supervisor, Greg, was a decent guy, but his aversion to confrontation bordered on pathological. I remember the first time I broached the subject, about 3 months into the job. "Greg," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral, "I'm finding it difficult to manage my own workload when I'm constantly assisting Brenda and Kevin. It's impacting my ability to meet my deadlines." Greg furrowed his brow, a telltale sign of his discomfort. "I understand, Sarah. I really do. They're still learning the ropes, you know. It takes time to adjust. Just try to be patient with them." Patient? I was practically a saint. I'd rewritten Brenda's spreadsheets riddled with errors, and I'd walked Kevin through the same reconciliation process at least 5 times. But I bit my tongue and nodded, hoping things would improve. They didn't. They got worse. The firm landed a major project auditing the accounts of a large manufacturing company run by a very particular Mr. Mark Thompson. The stakes were high. A successful audit could lead to a long-term contract, boosting the firm's reputation and our bonuses. Greg assigned specific tasks to each of us. I was responsible for reconciling the general ledger. Brenda was tasked with verifying accounts payable, and Kevin was in charge of accounts receivable. Almost immediately, the cracks started to show. Brenda's work was a mess. Numbers were transposed, invoices were missing, and her documentation was non-existent. Kevin, true to form, procrastinated until the last possible minute, then came to me with a frantic plea for assistance. "Sarah, I'm totally swamped. I'm drowning in invoices, and Thompson's team is breathing down my neck. Could you just take a look, just to make sure I haven't missed anything?" I stared at him, my hand hovering over my keyboard. I had my own deadlines to meet, and Thompson was already asking Greg about the progress. "Kevin," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I have my own responsibilities. I can't keep doing your work for you. I know I really appreciate your help. Just this one last thing. Please." He gave me his most pathetic puppy dog eyes. I relented. I always did. But this time, something inside me snapped a little. I started meticulously documenting everything. Every time Brenda arrived late, I noted the time. Every time Kevin asked for help, I recorded the task and the amount of time I spent on it. I even started taking screenshots of Brenda's social media activity on her work computer. The shopping was prolific. I knew this was getting petty, but I couldn't help myself. I was drowning in their incompetence, and I needed to find a way to stay afloat. The Thompson project became a nightmare. I was working late nights, fueled by coffee and resentment. I was snapping at my boyfriend, neglecting my hobbies, and generally turning into a stressed-out version of myself. One evening, Emily, a sweet and generally quiet colleague, approached my desk. "Sarah," she said softly, "I just wanted to say I see what's going on. I know you're carrying everyone." "Thanks, Emily," I said, managing a weak smile. "It's nice to know someone notices. It's not fair," she continued, "but I don't know what to do. I can't afford to get involved. Brenda and Kevin can be difficult." "I understand," I said. "Just knowing I'm not crazy helps." The final straw came a week before the audit deadline. Brenda submitted her accounts payable report, and it was riddled with errors so egregious they were almost comical. She had categorized office supplies as marketing expenses, She had completely missed several large invoices, and she had even managed to miscalculate the total by several $1,000s. Kevin, meanwhile, had completely failed to reconcile a crucial set of accounts receivable. He claimed he was waiting on information from the client, but I knew he hadn't even bothered to contact them. I marched into Greg's office, my carefully constructed calm finally shattered. "Greg," I said, my voice trembling with barely suppressed rage, "this is unacceptable. Brenda's work is completely inaccurate, and Kevin hasn't even done half of his assigned tasks. The Thompson audit is going to fail because of their incompetence." Greg looked flustered. "Now, Sarah, let's not jump to conclusions. I'm sure we can fix this." "Fix this? Greg, we're a week away from the deadline. I'm already working 60 hours a week trying to compensate for their laziness. I can't do it anymore. You need to do something. You need to hold them accountable." Greg sighed. "I'll talk to them, Sarah. I promise. I'll have a serious conversation." I knew that serious conversation would amount to nothing more than a gentle wrist slap. Greg would avoid any real confrontation. Brenda and Kevin would offer empty apologies, and the cycle would continue. That's when I decided I was done. I spent the next few days working on two things: salvaging the Thompson audit as much as I could, and formulating my exit strategy. The petty revenge part came naturally. I made sure that Greg and Mr. Thompson were aware that I, single-handedly, saved the day. I started subtly undermining Brenda and Kevin. When Brenda asked me a question about a complex accounting principle, I accidentally gave her slightly incorrect information, knowing it would lead to a minor error in her work. When Kevin needed a document from the archives, I forgot to tell him where to find it, forcing him to scramble at the last minute. It was small, vindictive, and incredibly satisfying. The day of the big presentation arrived. Mr. Thompson and his team were in the conference room, along with Greg, Brenda, Kevin, and myself. The atmosphere was tense. I knew that Brenda and Kevin's failures would be glaringly obvious. Greg started the meeting with a nervous introduction. "Good morning, everyone. We're here today to present our preliminary findings on the Thompson manufacturing audit. Sarah, would you like to begin?" I took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Thank you, Greg. Before I present the overall findings, I'd like to address some concerns regarding the individual responsibilities assigned to the team." I paused, letting my words hang in the air. Greg shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Brenda and Kevin exchanged nervous glances. Mr. Thompson looked intrigued. I proceeded to present my meticulously documented evidence. I showed Brenda's errors in accounts payable, highlighting the miscategorized expenses and the missing invoices. I displayed Kevin's incomplete accounts receivable reconciliation, showcasing the lack of communication with the client and the missed deadlines. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't get emotional, and I didn't name call. I simply presented the facts, clearly and concisely. The evidence spoke for itself. As you can see, I concluded, the inaccuracies and omissions in these areas have significantly impacted the overall audit process. I have, to the best of my ability, attempted to correct these errors and complete the outstanding tasks. The extent of the issues has made it challenging to meet the deadline without compromising the quality of the work. The room was silent. Mr. Thompson stared at Brenda and Kevin with undisguised disapproval. Greg's face was pale. Brenda and Kevin sputtered out weak excuses, blaming system errors and client delays. Mr. Thompson cut them off. "I've heard enough. Greg, I expect this to be addressed immediately. I want a revised report on my desk by the end of the week. I also expect disciplinary action to be taken. Is that understood?" Greg stammered, "Yes, Mr. Thompson. Absolutely. We'll take care of it." The meeting adjourned, leaving Brenda and Kevin to face the wrath of Greg and Mr. Thompson. I walked back to my cubicle, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and exhaustion. I knew I had just thrown my coworkers under the bus, but I also knew that they had driven themselves there with their own laziness and incompetence. That afternoon, I drafted my resignation letter. I didn't go into detail about Brenda and Kevin's shortcomings, but I made it clear that I was leaving due to the unfair workload and the lack of support from management. I gave 2 weeks' notice, knowing that it would create even more chaos for Greg and his team. When I submitted my resignation, Greg looked genuinely shocked. "Sarah, what are you doing? Why are you leaving?" "We need you." "I'm sorry, Greg," I said, "but I can't keep working in an environment where my hard work is constantly taken advantage of. I need to prioritize my own well-being." He tried to convince me to stay, offering a small raise and vague promises of change, but my mind was made up. I was done. My last 2 weeks were filled with a quiet sense of vindication. Brenda and Kevin were noticeably subdued, knowing that their incompetence had been exposed. They tried to avoid me, but I made sure to offer them a cheerful good morning every day, just to remind them of their shame. On my last day, I left a small, anonymous gift for Emily, a book on assertiveness training, along with a handwritten note that read, "You deserve better. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself." As I walked out of the office for the last time, I felt a surge of liberation. I had a new job lined up at a company that valued hard work and accountability. I knew I was making the right decision. Later that day, Emily texted me, "Thank you, Sarah, for everything." I smiled. Maybe, just maybe, my petty revenge had made a small difference in someone else's life. The final image that stayed with me, however, was the look on Brenda and Kevin's faces as I left. They were sitting at their desks, surrounded by overflowing inboxes and unanswered emails, realizing that I was no longer there to pick up their slack. They finally had to work, and I wasn't going to be there to do it for them. It was a fitting end to a long and frustrating chapter of my life. And truthfully, I finally felt free.